So I recently started teaching a new student, and one of the challenges that he was having is that whenever he'd go from a falsetto to maybe what he felt like was his normal voice or his chest voice, he felt like his voice would break and then it would drop down into a much lower pitch. Ooh. Now, I know a lot of you watching this show, the flip or the break is a big challenge for us to work through. So let's actually talk about today why our voice actually breaks to begin with. Why does it happen? And then I'll also share some strategies that have worked for me and that have helped my students in eliminating that break. Let's dive in. Now, to explain this in a way that makes sense, I want to dive back deeper into some of the fundamentals of the voice. Now, the first fundamental is we need to stretch the voice because that's how we adjust the pitch. Like literally your vocal folds will get stretched and they will thin out. The second one is that the chords will get pressed together, and this determines how much power, how strong your sound is. So how does this relate to a voice break? What exactly happens when we have a voice break? A voice break is simply when there is a sudden change in these mechanisms. Usually there's two things that are happening. The first one is the chords suddenly disengage, which is why the pitch usually goes down. And the second one is the voice usually kind of presses in a bit harder than we'd like or a bit out of control than we'd like. And that's why there's a sudden change in the quality of the sound. So really, it's just a lack of awareness or control of these fundamental mechanisms that's causing you to crack. And that also means by learning to get good control of these fundamental mechanisms, you can eliminate the break as well. Now, real quick before I share how to fix this, for those of you who are checking out this show for the very first time, my name's Ivan. I'm a voice teacher who works with students from all around the world over Zoom. And so really on this channel, my goal is to make learning how to sing as simple and as easy as possible. So if that is up your lane, consider subscribing. And if you like some of the stuff that you're hearing here and you want to work with me more in depth, check out some of the links down in the description. I've got ways to work with me privately and also some self-study programs that you can work on at your own pace. Now, if you want to inspire our next episode, drop in the comments down below what you want me to talk about next. Apart from that, let's give you a practical exercise on how you can eliminate the break. And so a very simple exercise that you can do to start getting rid of that break is actually this. I want you to practice hitting the exact same note in a light connection. Some of you might think of it as falsetto, and also in a thicker, a heavier connection. Some of you might think of it as chest voice. The reason why this is a really good exercise is it's going to get you familiar with these two fundamental mechanisms. Now, the first step here is let's just find a very easy note for us in a light connection. Now, the reason why we're going to choose a place with light connection is you can kind of think of this as just a coordination where the voice is just stretching. They're not really pressing together very, very hard. So it's going to allow us to really notice the feeling of kind of singing those high notes, of kind of really kind of stretching. Now, personally, I would recommend you start off with somewhere in the middle of your range, just so it's nice and easy. And we're going to try this, right? Let's see if we can hit this note. So I'm kind of finding that note in a lighter connection. Now, for me personally, it is a bit hard for me to find my falsetto just because I've just come off sickness, so my chord's a bit thick. But for those of you who can do this, right, I want you to then notice what sensations do you feel. You can even kind of go up and down the piano a tiny bit just to kind of give yourself some good references. What do you notice? What's that sensation that's actually allowing you to get to that note? Now, personally, for me, I kind of notice that the sound kind of just tilts up and forward. It kind of stays in this kind of higher up in front position. And you might have noticed that I'm actually engaging a bit like a puppy whimper kind of quality, which allows me to kind of sit up in that place. Personally, for me, I feel that as the stretching of the voice. And once again, these are just imageries. These are just, proxies, because ultimately it is very hard for me to put a camera down my throat and see exactly what is happening. But I feel like it's a good kind of proxy for feeling this kind of stretch. Now, for those of you who can hit a note in falsetto and you can notice the sensation, you can notice this kind of up and forward sensation, or maybe you found your own little feeling or sensation that you're like, hey, I feel like this is me stretching the voice. What we want to do then is we want to add connection. We want to add pressure without losing that feeling, without losing that sensation. Because for example, if I find that kind of spot in a puppy whimper, I find that position of stretch. All I need to do is I hit it with a bit more connection in that position. And so pretty much here, I'm just trying to add a bit of pressure, a bit of connection, a bit of buzz to that position of stretch, right? That kind of little up and forward place that I've found with the puppy whimper. Now, if I lose that, for example, if I go, like notice how the pitch kind of falls off, like it kind of falls flat. Personally, for me, I notice my voice doesn't sit up in the up and front place anymore. It kind of just comes back down. And so if you notice the pitch fall flat as you're kind of adding a bit more connection, or maybe you notice that, if you kind of feel that kind of up and over feeling, you notice that sound kind of pulling out of that position, then this is a sign that you've lost the stretch. And this is a key reason why the voice cracks. It's simply because these two muscles are just kind of fighting against each other. So you're going to have to experiment with this. We're using a lot of imagery to kind of figure this thing out. But as long as you can get to this goal where you can hit the same note in a falsetto and something with a slightly strong connection and not completely lose that position, don't lose that kind of position you found in that falsetto, this is going to open up a whole world in your technique on how do we not have these two fundamental mechanisms fight each other, causing these kind of vocal breaks or these kind of random things that happen with our voice, and instead do something like this, where it just kind of smoothly kind of goes through that area. And all I'm doing there is I'm keeping that stretch and I'm slowly disengaging it, as opposed to these sudden movements that you might be doing right now. Anyway, I hope this episode was useful. If it did, please do all the usual social media stuff. It really, really helps this channel and it means a lot to me. If you're from the podcast, leaving a 5-star review would be really, really amazing. As I mentioned in the beginning, if you like the way I talk about the voice here and you really want to improve your voice with less confusion, once again, there are links down in the description on how you can work with me privately or work through some of my self-study programs at your own pace. So links are down in the description. Apart from that, my name is Ivan. I'm your voice teacher and I'll see you every single Thursday or Friday, depending on where you're joining me from. Take care. Bye.